Okay. All right. Hello. I'm glad it's after lunch, but it's not like, comatose time. So, yeah. All right. Hey, do I just press go? Where's my deck? It's behind me. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'm looking at this one. I'm like, where is it? All right. Okay. Now I've got all the scripts out of the way. We can begin. I wanted to talk to you guys today. Tyler asked me, what would you like to talk to the group about? And I said, I've really had a lot of frustrating conversations lately with the site owners who were doing really dumb things because somebody told them it was good for SEO. And my response was, who told you that? And they would come up with various excuses. And it was clear that they just didn't understand the core concepts that were underlying the advice. So they were applying the advice weirdly, and it was causing problems for them. One of the things that frequently caused problems was not understanding the power and the function of domain authority or page rank. Did anybody ever talk about domain authority or page authority? Do people contact you and go, I have high DA sites and I would like to post your, did they do that? Okay. So, yeah, we need to have a chat because PageRank is officially not a thing that Google even shares with anyone anymore. They know what your number is. They are not going to tell you. So anyone who says they know what your PageRank is officially full of crap because that is not a thing any of us know. So anyone who comes and tells you that, they're lying. Domain authority and page authority tends to be a Moz thing. And they even came out with a statement, I think it was earlier this year, maybe it was late last year, that the way they had been calculating it was maybe not the most accurate way. And it wasn't necessarily an accurate number that you should be using. And then trust flow is basically kind of the same thing from another company. These are all different ways of saying you've got some stored energy on your site, right? And it's that stored energy that helps your new content rank well. Has anyone ever told you, said, oh, I'm going to get this content put on an authority site and it's going to do gangbusters because this is an authority site and just by virtue of being there, it's going to rank well. That's really not exactly how it works. So the way it works is authority is generated by the incoming links to your website, right? There's other things too, the longevity, but a lot of it is links. It's your inbound links and it's how many links you have within your site linking to certain content. The deepest source or well of authority that you have is generally your homepage because that is where most people link to you, right? So if you think of that as the top of the champagne glass tower, right? All of this authority is getting poured into the top and it flows down to all the pages that connect to it. If you have links throughout your site, all linking around, you're spreading that love around all over the place, right? It really is kind of the functional economy of your website. If you hoard the money and you don't share it, you're not going to, some of the parts of your site are going to kind of die off or they're going to be impoverished. You'll have very rich sites, you'll have very poor pages. It's not going to be equal. And if you're not aware of how you can share that money around, you're not going to be taking full advantage of that stored energy. Also, though, because it's based on the links, if you divide that pie up too much, you're going to be shortchanging some of the pages that you have. So if it's $1, let's say your homepage is worth $1, and you have 150 links on your homepage to interior pages of your site, what's $1 divided by 150? I don't know. I can't do that math. The point is, it's less than a penny each, right? So you're throwing less than a penny at every single one of those links that you've got. And if some of those links go off your site, you're throwing that less than a penny off your site. That's a lot of places do that. I work with some big sites that do that. You can get away with it when the value that's stored on your homepage is worth more than $1. So if you have 56 million incoming links to your homepage, maybe I can get away with 100 links coming off of that. the point is, if you want to direct that and harness that energy, if you're more judicious about how you're linking out from that deep well of authority, you can actually help Google understand what pages you think are the most important and what sections you think are the most important. If you squandered everything before you get to maybe, say, some new content, not that I would ever talk about anything that's going on at my current employer, because I would not do that because I promise not to. You have old sections of the site that have been around forever, and they do fine on their own. And then you have this new sport. I didn't say sport. This new section. Thank you. That's not doing well. Why is it not doing well? It's on our site. It should do well. The problem is that these existing sports all had their own inbound links, their own accrued authority that was going straight in and bypassing the homepage. The homepage, it turns out, has this problem where it's not spreading the wealth around like it's supposed to. So what section isn't getting any of the love off of the homepage? That new section. And it's basically getting treated like a severed finger by the search engines. Yeah, it's kind of part of us, but it's really not getting any blood flow, if that makes sense. So there's issues there that people need to be aware of, technical issues. One of the things that I've had people tell me that consultants are telling them is that they should try to hide slices of the authority pie by putting no follow attributes on the links to reduce the number of outbound links that they have. Doing that is not actually effective. If you no follow a link, and I'll have a whole section on no follow coming up next. If you no follow a link, all you're doing is saying, I don't vote for this. I don't want to pass any love to this destination page. Now, applying that to affiliate links is probably appropriate. That's a thing you should do. Applying it just because you're trying to hoard and conserve your authority is going to fail. And the reason it's going to fail is because you're not actually hoarding it. In your head, you're like, okay, so if the balloon's full of water and I pop a hole in it for every link that I've got, no following that is like putting tape over the hole, right? And it'll keep the water inside, except it doesn't. All it does is the water still comes out, it just evaporates into nothing. So you're still getting rid of it. If you have 10 links on a page, right? So let's say the page is worth $1, 10 divided by 100, or 100 divided by 10, 10 cents each, right? If you no follow 3 of those links thinking you're going to reduce the number of links from 10 to 7, you're wrong. You still have 10 links. But now, instead of having 100% of the value to pass around to all your links, you have 70% of the value. Everybody's still getting the same value they would have gotten. It would be better if that link weren't there. So if you're going to no follow a link, understand that, yeah, you're not throwing any value at them, but you're not keeping any of it for yourself, which is why you should never, 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 never no follow internal links to yourself. Why on earth would you tell the search engines, I'm a powerful authority about this topic, but this page of mine, ignore that. It is dead to me. Why would you do that? That is a dumb thing to do, but I've had people tell me that they're doing that. That's basically being stingy with the pie in your own house. If they're in the family, you share the pie with them. Make sense? Okay. You guys are awfully quiet, and I'm starting to feel like you need some coffee. All right. No indexing things is to keep stuff out of the search engines, right? There are ways to do this, there are ways not to do this, and there are appropriate times and places to do this. One of the things that I've seen people do is try to no index pages in the robots.txt. Am I getting too technical? Are you guys like, okay. Do not, okay, you are supposed to, the robots.txt tells the search engines not to crawl a page. It doesn't necessarily tell it not to index it. So just because they can't crawl to it, just because they're not supposed to crawl to it doesn't mean they won't find it another way. So if you say, hey, I have this thing over here that I don't want anyone to see, so just don't come in here, Google, right? People will also put that page in their sitemap. So here, come to my party. No, go away. And they get very confused. They get mad about that. The crawlers don't like it. There's another situation where you're saying, oh, please don't come look at this content, but then you've got links to it coming in from outside. If they find those links outside, they're going to find that content. And then they're going to be confused about why you have it no indexed. And they'll still serve it up in the results, but it'll, instead of having your description at the bottom, it'll say, this site's description has been blocked by the robots.txt. Please click here for more information. And that's going to make users think that your site's broken or that you did something wrong. So that's not good for SEO either. The page is still there. I promise you the page is still there. People think they're doing it to preserve crawl budget. Has anyone had a talk with anybody about crawl budget? Okay. Well, crawl budget is the concept that the search engines and their robots have a, let's use the money metaphor. They've got, let's say every page or link that they explore costs them a penny. And for your site, they've got 10 bucks. When they run out of 10 bucks, they're going to leave and go do something else for a little while until they have another 10 bucks to come back and spend crawling around your site. So if you have something that causes them to get confused and start looping around and hitting the same page over and over again, you're going to use up all that budget on crap. So there's a ton of different ways that you can screw that up. One of the ways is to have redirect loops, too many 404s. Have 404s that are returning 200s. You know what a 404 is? Do we know what a 200 is? Okay. Did I hear no?
Yeah, I don't know what a 200.
200 means everything's A-okay. So if the page reads, hey, that content's not here anymore, but the code says you found it, you're going to confuse the bot because it's going to say, okay, well, I found what I was looking for, and this content does not match. And now all of a sudden the relevancy is bad. And that page, whatever it was, is going to get a bad relevancy score. Whereas if that was an inbound link from somewhere valuable, let's say you had a Wikipedia link and you changed the URL and it was returning a soft 404, now that authority that was being injected into your site from Wikipedia is just going into the ether. But if you had a proper 301 redirect that went to the correct relevant content, then you've got instead of having all that authority pouring in at the homepage, you're injecting authority in somewhere deep in your site, which means you've got now another well of authority to spread things around, assuming that your navigation is good. Does that make sense? Okay. Another reason I've heard for no index is that we're trying to prevent duplicate content. This is also stupid. If the page exists, I assure you the search engines know about it. Why are you bothering to publish something and then tell the search engines to pretend that they did not find it? Just make it go away. Combine the pages. Don't just no index something and leave it out there. How many people still think this is a penalty? Who thinks it's a duplicate content penalty? Really? Yes. Do you think it's a penalty? It is not a penalty. What it is, anybody collect baseball cards, or am I just super old? Okay. So if you collect things, here's what happens. If I get 3 of the same card, I will pick the best quality card and I will keep that one. And the other ones I will give away or I will sell because I really only need one in my collection to be happy. And that's what Google does with duplicate content that it finds. It says, okay, what is the best, highest quality version of this content? I'm going to keep that one and I'm just not going to include the other ones in the search results. So it's not so much a penalty, it's a conservation of space and resources on the part of the bots. And you want to control which version is being preserved. Okay? So that's another reason you should not use no index for that stuff. The meta no index is when the no index is on the page. If you have a meta no index and you also have a canonical on the page, especially a cross-domain canonical or a canonical that points to a different page, you're really sending a weird, loopy message to the search engines. It's conflicting, and that could affect your crawl budget. It could knock the other page out of the index. There's all kinds of bad stuff that could happen. So if you're going to use a meta no index, please make sure that you're using it appropriately. That being said, there are still very few reasons why I think you should be no indexing content on your site. Now, the sponsored content that the gentleman before me was discussing, that I think might be a candidate for a no index, especially if you're a news site. How many of you are news publishers, like official Google News publishers? Okay, you're not supposed to have sponsored content in your Google News sitemap. You're supposed to no index that stuff. When someone comes and pays you to put something on your site, that should not show up in Google. It's not meant to. And if it is, you could get in trouble. I mean, it would be a for real penalty that time. That would actually be a legitimate penalty. So you don't want to use it for that. I think I already kind of covered when it is okay to use, which is mostly if you have to do it for legal compliance. But just make sure that you're using it right, because a no index used incorrectly could screw up your crawl budget. It's not going to save your crawl budget, it's going to screw it up. Please don't use that incorrectly. All right. The nofollow. Nofollow, again, referencing the previous talk, is generally, well, almost always supposed to be for affiliate links or links that are paid for. You're supposed to identify those as links that are paid for so that the search engines know that this was not earned on merit. This was paid for. They don't want you linking to things that there's been some kind of consideration for. And if that consideration is somebody bought you a box of cookies, technically that counts. Not that they're going to find out about it if you're quiet, but you're supposed to do that. And if you're consistently failing to label your advertisers' links as nofollow, they could decide to devalue all of the links that you have, which means none of your links will pass value to the rest of your site, which means you're going to get in a situation where all of your page value, all of that domain authority is just going to sit on the page that it happens to be dumped into, like your home page or a deep page, and it's not going to spread around because you, through your bad behavior, have shown the search engines that you can't be trusted, and therefore they're just not going to let you share your pie. No pie for any of you. That's the way it's going to work. That was funny. I appreciate some laughter. Thank you. Okay. So what are people doing with it? They're doing this thing called Pagerank Sculpting, which is very similar to crawl budget sculpting, where you say, all right, I really only want the pages on my site about foo-foo nuts to rank. So I'm going to put no follows on all these other things. Or I see this in WordPress a lot. They will, out of the box, Yoast says that you should no follow and no index category pages and tag pages. Who's heard that? Okay. I understand they say that, and I understand that there's value to that in some situations. However, I had a guy come to me and say, I don't understand why the e-commerce section of my site's going gangbusters. I have all this blog content that we're generating, and we're getting links, and we're sending out links, and we're syndicating this out. We're trying to get some more traffic, and it just doesn't rank for anything. It turns out that when you got into the content section of their site, the entire navigation goes to a category page, goes to a tag page, goes to a category page. And then there were 3 articles, the 3 most recent. These were all no followed. And when you went to those pages, they were no indexed. And I said, okay, so explain to me what we're doing here. Because what you're telling the search engines is, I don't trust my own content. And when they do get to the content, you can't crawl it. I don't want you to discover any of the stories there. GTFO. And we all know what that means, right? Okay. And he said, well, that's an SEO best practice. And I said, well, being an SEO since the dawn of time, I would like to explain to you that is in fact not a best practice. What you're doing is choking off the lifeblood of your site from literally all your effing content. So I had him take all of that stuff off, and then within a week, the site traffic was up 300%, because all of a sudden Google's like, yay, I can look at the content now. And they want your content. So don't take it away from them or hide it. Pagerank sculpting is not a thing. Yes, sir.
So, question about that. Say the category and tag pages have those issues. What if you have it where it doesn't have your page or your post, whatever it is, go through that entire process first? Like it just goes for domain and then type. There's no category or tag.
If there are no links to those pages, there's no reason to have them indexed, and I'm okay with that. But if you've got links to something, like they'll have tag clouds, and then no index all the tag pages. Like, why are you providing a link to every single one of your tags from every single one of your pages because it's in a widget, and then you're no indexing it? Google, look, this is so important. I literally put links to this on every damn page of my site. By the way, pretend you didn't see it. It's like, you know? Yeah.
I have set my site to index the first page of every tag or category only, and not the other pages of the tag or the category. Is that okay?
So you've just got the first page, but you've no indexed the subsequent pages?
Of the tag, yes.
That's okay. Because there's still something there. You're just saying, now that you're here, don't bother crawling through 9,000 other pages. That is acceptable. So I'm down with that one. Okay? Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the paid content.
Okay.
If you have paid content on the site, your news site,
Yeah.
what are the issues that I might have, or that site might have?
Well, people aren't supposed to pay you to put content on your site and have it look like.
Did I say me?
No, you didn't. So hypothetically, it is frowned upon in this particular establishment to have people pay you to put content on your site without it being properly labeled. And they don't want that indexed because they don't want people looking for news, like actual news, to get stuff that ain't news showing up in the news. So to
Suppose it is.
well, then why are they paying you for it? That should be editorial. You see, it can't be both, right? And we'll actually get to that in the next couple slides, because determining the difference between what is I just don't like them, so I've got a no follow on it. I'm trying to do something fancy with the PageRank, so I've got a no follow on it. And this is an affiliate or a paid link, so I've got a no follow on it. Search engines haven't been real good at telling those apart. So what they've done is they've created these new link attributes. Now, instead of rel no followed, you can do rel sponsored. Rel sponsored is for sponsored content. So when you link to that content, it must, for Google, have a rel sponsored on the link right now. So until March of 2020, those are going to be considered hints. We have a date. They've given us a date, and they've told us what's going to happen. They stop being hints after March 2020. So until March of next year, you can use the no follow if you like, but before then, you better switch that over to make sure it's sponsored. Yeah. It depends. If you've got a lot of them, it depends on how much traffic that's getting, probably. I mean, I would say going forward, you're probably safe. If you really get aggressive or you have an intern that you hate, make them go backwards and do it. Because, I mean, I'm not going to lie, that's drudgery, but it's not going to kill you to do it. Do you have to? We don't know that yet. I mean, I don't want to advise you to do anything that's wrong, but we don't know yet what exactly the penalties are going to be. And I think if it were me, hypothetically, I would probably just do it going forward and wait to see if it becomes a problem. So the other rel attribute you could do is UGC. UGC is for user-generated content. I'll get you in one sec. So we've got, for comments, where we're currently no following all the links, like WordPress is pretty good about slapping no follows on any link that a user adds in a comment. That's probably going to get fixed by WordPress, and they're going to switch that over to UGC. You can also layer these, so you could have something that's UGC and sponsored simultaneously. Not sure how the implementation of that is going to work just yet, because it's still pretty new. But just remember, this is new. It was just announced like a couple weeks ago. You have until March of next year to get this figured out, but it's coming. They've told us, they gave us a date. They don't always do that. But because they've taken the time to tell us, we know it's a for real thing. So until March, it's going to be a hint. After March, we could get in trouble for it. This is kind of like, having the real ID to get on an airplane. They've been telling us for a year. You better make sure you get that figured out. Yeah. I would say both. Because it's sponsored, you're being compensated.
So for those clients who want a new follow,
Do they understand that they're asking you to do something that's a violation of the Google Terms of Service? Because they are. Like they're basically asking you to like put yourself at risk for money.
So going forward then,
Yeah.
this will replace the do follow.
There's no such thing as a do follow. This will replace the no follow that you should have been using.
Okay, what are you saying me?
Hypothetically,
But seriously, so the stuff that might already be there,
yeah.
you're saying that you may be okay, but starting in March, you definitely want
The stuff that's there that has a no follow on it may be okay. The stuff that's there that's a naked link that doesn't have any kind of attribute on it, if it's a paid link and they find it, you could get in trouble. Like even going back ages, they could be retroactive about it if they want to. They've got these, the computer programs that go through and they're trudging through your site and they're finding links and they know if it's a no follow and they know if it's a naked link. And if they follow a naked link over and they go, oh, this is an affiliate page. Wait, let me double check that. Nope, it was a follow. Okay. How many more of these am I going to find? Oh, and then they start finding a few more. And then all of a sudden you hit that magic threshold where they go, this is a problem. This wasn't a one-off thing. This is a pattern. I think we're going to put you in timeout. And then you're in timeout.
get out.
You can get out of timeout, but you got to fix everything. So like if you ever go and do a site search for yourself and things that you used to be on page 1 for, you're now on page 9, that's called a plus 90 penalty because they just took whatever your rank was and added 90 to it. Where's the best place to hide a body? Thank you. Second page of Google. So, okay, so those are the new link attributes. Just this last week, I had the pleasure of hearing that on-page SEO is dead because John Mueller made a comment that our systems don't have a problem when it comes to multiple H1 headings on a page, which instantly caused my Slack to blow up with developers saying, you put in that ticket and you're making us do all this work to get rid of these 56 H1s that are on that page. And I'm not lying, there literally are 56. But we don't have to do that because Google now said it's perfectly okay. It's like, all right, so when they make these pronouncements, they are generally answering a very specific question that is related to a very specific context. It doesn't mean it's a blanket statement that it's 100% okay to do this all of the time. And the reason it's not okay to do it 100% of the time is because just because their systems aren't going to choke on it doesn't mean their systems are going to perfectly and clearly understand what they're encountering. And our job when we present our content is to make sure that there's no ambiguity and the context is crystal clear. So why would you intentionally cause confusion? On story pages for news in particular, the bot goes through and it looks for a headline, right? And then it looks for the story. And if it encounters 17 headlines and then a story, it will pick the first headline it finds and then start interpreting everything underneath it as story. So if you have navigation, not that this ever happened, I swear. So if you have navigation here and it's H1, 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 and these are all the different stories that you can read, and then it goes up to the H1 that is the story that corresponds to maybe one of these, and then the actual story, Google News will get confused. And with Google News in particular, you have a very finite time window to get that story correctly. Regular Google, if you're an evergreen type of publisher, you got a lot more leeway. Google News is not the same crawler. Well, okay, technically it's the same crawler. It's not the same algorithm that's processing things. It's a little bit more particular. Just because somebody who works at Google says something like this does not mean that your developers are off the hook. It doesn't mean that just because they can read everything on the page, all of your SEO is just out the window because it doesn't matter because they said they can still read it. It's really not, that's not 100% accurate. Also, that doesn't take into account what your competitors are doing. Ranking well for difficult to get terms is like Olympic swimming. The difference between first place and second place could be literally 4/100ths of a second. So why would you not take the time to do things that you know are correct and you know will help clear things up and make things contextual for anyone who reads it, right? The big things that you should always, 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 always do with any change you do, and keep this in mind with any change anyone asks you to do, the change that you make should not impede the crawl. Fancy JavaScript navigation will not pass value off your homepage. I may know this from personal experience. Don't do anything that is going to jack up Google's ability to spider through your site and find the content. Don't slap useless no indexes on things just because you're too lazy to delete them and put a proper redirect in. Don't screw up the crawl. Don't impede or hinder the reading or rendering of your content. Sometimes fancy Ajax and fancy this and fancy that doesn't work right. If you have content that appears to be invisible to the search engines, it's probably because they can't see it. Something is keeping them from reading or rendering your page. Make sure you're not being so bleeding edge that you're exceeding the, what's a good analogy? You know how if it's foggy or dark and your headlights are on, but your headlights only see so far, you can't drive as fast as you want to go because you don't want to drive so fast that you can't see ahead of you. Don't do that. Don't be driving so fast that, the headlights can't see what's in the road. And then finally, do not create confusion or ambiguity within your content. If you're feeding Google 15 H1s, make sure that they can at least tell which one is the lead headline on the page and what content is associated with that, right? Anyone see The Incredibles? Okay. What is it Syndrome said? When everybody's super, nobody is. An H1 is the most important thing on the page. When everything's an H1, nothing is. Okay, that was a lot cooler when I said it in my head. All right, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so I have rambled for a while now, I think, and I believe that is the end of my presentation. But I am here all day, tip your waitress, and if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them.